Hey there everybody, welcome back to my channel and happy Spooktober. One of the best months out of the year in my opinion. So last week I announced that I was submitting to Pitch Wars, which I did. Sent it in, all went well. I've been stalking the Pitch Wars teasers tag on Twitter ever since. It's becoming an addiction, but you know, it's fine. We're fine. But while I was talking about that last week, I mentioned that I had been very meticulous and careful in picking out my mentors. You know, I had really done my due diligence to make sure I had picked out 4 really awesome mentors that were a perfect match for my story, and not only for my story, but for me also. And I said that this week I would make a video all about how I chose my mentors, which is what I'm doing. This is why we're here. And I thought this would be a fun video idea for 2 reasons. First of all, for any fellow Pitch Wars mentee hopefuls out there, you can kind of see what I did to pick my mentors, and you can let me know how you kind of did it, and we can just like compare notes, you know, for next time. If we don't get in, then we can kind of compare like what worked, what didn't work. So that could be fun. But also, you know, for future Pitch Wars mentee hopefuls who stumble upon this video in later years, you can see what I did to pick my mentors and see if that kind of works for you, if that's a method that might kind of ease your anxieties, because it really eased my anxiety. Because I knew that I was doing my due diligence, I knew I was taking everything into account, every possible good and bad thing about these mentors, and I was making the best decision that I could. And that really does ease your anxiety when it comes to that kind of thing. So yeah, for current hopefuls and for future hopefuls, this video is for everyone. But you know, I'm suddenly realizing some of you may be coming upon this video and you may be like, what the heck even is Pitch Wars? Like, what are you talking about? So let me explain what that is really quickly, and then we'll get into the actual topic of today's video. So the long and short of it, the very quick synopsis of what Pitch Wars is it is a pitch competition. Basically what happens is that once a year, a group of agented authors, some of them who have book deals, some of them don't, you know, they're just in different stages of the career, but they are all agented. They commit to dedicating their time and knowledge to helping a select group of writers to polish up their manuscripts and pitch their stories to a group of agents. So what happens is that a bunch of aspiring authors like myself with full, complete manuscripts that have hopefully been polished, you know, they've been revised at least once, we submit them to up to 4 mentors. And I mean, there's a shit ton of mentors, but you can only choose 4, so you need to choose the 4 that you think are the best match for your specific manuscript. And then hopefully one of those 4 mentors choose you to be their mentee. And how they choose is normally you're sending in a query letter, a 1-page synopsis of your story, and either the first chapter or the first 10 pages of your manuscript. And so they read through all of that, and then if they really like your story and think it's something that they can help you polish, then they request more pages, and then if they really like it, then they choose you to be their mentee. And then once you're chosen as their mentee, then they help you to polish up the manuscript. They do multiple rounds of revisions with you to make it the best it can be. They help you polish up your query letter and synopsis as well as like a 1-sentence pitch. And then at the end of all of this, it's like a couple of months that you get to revise, there is a agent pitch session. And in this pitch session, your query letter is posted online as well as like the first page of your manuscript. And a bunch of agents go through, they read these query letters, they read these first pages, and they then request more material, and then hopefully through that you end up getting an agent. It's not a guarantee that you get an agent, but it is a really good chance that you will get an agent. And even if you don't get an agent, what you do have is a really polished manuscript that you can then use to query agents, you know, outside of the pitch competition. So either way, you're a winner. So yes, that is the long and short of what Pitch Wars is. It's a great opportunity. I highly recommend any and everybody who has a completed manuscript submit, because you never know, you could get chosen and it could be a really, really great opportunity for you. So then with all of that said, let's jump into how I chose my 4 mentors. So the very first thing that I did was I just read through all of the wish lists of the young adult mentors. I didn't take notes, I didn't do anything, I just read them to get a feel of who the mentors were, what their revision style was, and just like what vibes did I get off of them, you know? It was a bit of a skim because I knew I was going to be coming back and reading more in depth later, so it was just a basic, who are these people, what kind of vibe do I get off them, are there any that are immediately standing out to me, etc. Then after that I created my Excel spreadsheet, which I'm going to pop up on the screen right now. So as you can see, I've actually hidden the names of the mentors that I had included in the spreadsheet just because, you know, things that I was thinking about these specific mentors, I just don't want that out in the world, you know, so I just hid them for the sake of privacy and whatever, but the rest of it is there for you to see. The names of the mentors don't really matter anyway. But yeah, so as you can see, I have a ton of different categories running across the top. We have the mentors, we have the genres that they are representing, what they do want, what they don't want, what their favorite like books or TV shows or media is, how they plan to communicate when the time comes if you're chosen as a mentor, their specific mentoring style, their strengths as far as mentoring goes, and then some possible deal breakers. So let's go over these one by one and explain exactly what I was looking for each of these categories. So for genres, I didn't write down every single genre these people were going to be mentoring because like that didn't really matter to me. What mattered to me is, are they doing contemporary, which is what my manuscript that I submitted was. So that's all I really wrote down for that. If they were doing contemporary, I wrote contemporary, and honestly, I didn't even put any mentors into the spreadsheet that didn't represent contemporary or weren't mentoring contemporary, so technically I guess this category didn't really matter, but at the time when I made the spreadsheet, I thought it would matter. Next, for does want, again, I only wrote down things that had to do with my specific manuscript. So what I ended up sending to them was the manuscript that I've been calling Cute Gay Rom-Com Novel. So obviously it has LGBT characters, it's a romance, it has certain romance tropes, so if they were looking for anything like that that was in my book, you know, queer characters and themes, diversity, slow burn romance, exploring identity, that's what kind of stuff is in my book. So I wrote all of that down, and in the end, the people who had the most things in their does want category that matched with my manuscript, those were the ones that I ended up making their name green on my spreadsheet because that meant like, oh, this might be a good person to submit to. Doesn't want, I don't really know if I used that category really. I don't think I did because that was going to be for, you know, if they say I definitely don't want queer characters or I definitely don't want slow burn romance or something, you know. That was what I was going to put in that category, but nobody really didn't want anything that was in my story, so I lucked out there, but I think it's a good category to have, especially if you're doing something a little bit more, not risky exactly, but a little bit more different than what like my book is a very basic romance novel. You know, there's not too much to it that could be something people wouldn't want, so, but like if you're doing like a fantasy novel and you have certain elements in it that, you know, some people might not like rape or whatever, then this would be a good category for you to make sure that you have in your spreadsheet. Then for favorites, again, anything that related to my book, so like Red, White, and Royal Blue. It's a LGBT romance novel. I mean, it was new adult, but kind of basically the same thing. Other mentors said they like Aristotle and Dante, What If It's Us, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, you know, anything like that I wrote down because, you know, if they like those books, then they'll probably like my book. Communication I put down because for me, I'm a very anxious person, so anybody who said that they like required a video chat or like a phone call or something like that, I was a little more hesitant to submit to just because I hate phone calls, I hate video chats, I hate it, hate it, hate it. I will do it if necessary. I can do it like once, but the people who are like, we have to do it multiple times throughout the revision process, I'm like, maybe not. And then mentor style, I just wrote down anything that they said. It didn't really matter to me what their mentoring style was going to be. I can work with anybody as long as they're helping me with my manuscript. You know, that wasn't really a big deal breaker for me or anything, what their style was. But, you know, I will say, there was one person who said they're very tough love and blunt with their criticisms, and I ended up not submitting to that person for like other reasons also, but that was kind of like, you know, not that I want somebody to blow smoke up my ass, you know, and just give me all compliments all the time, but I didn't want somebody who was going to be mean and make me cry, you know, so it's something to consider when you're choosing, especially like if you know that you're a sensitive person who doesn't want somebody ripping your book to shreds without doing a compliment sandwich or something. Like, that's something to consider. Strengths was also something that was kind of important to me when I ended up choosing my final 4 mentors. I mean, not all of them said what their strengths were. I chose different mentors for different reasons, but there was at least one mentor, I think, who said that their strengths really fell in line with things that I knew I wanted help with in my manuscript. And that's really what this category comes down to. What do you think you need help with in your manuscript? Like, I didn't write down all of their strengths that they listed. I only wrote down the things like heightening romantic tension because my book is a romance, or tightening character arcs because I feel like one specific character in my book maybe doesn't have the tightest character arc. Maybe I need a little bit more help figuring out what his motivations are. So anything like that I wrote down, and it did play a part in helping me pick out my mentors. And then finally, possible deal breakers, which were things that just felt like, you know, it wasn't a bad thing that they did or didn't want this thing, but just as far as why would I submit to a mentor who says they only want own voices when my book is not own voices, you know? I mean, there's some own voices elements in my book, but like the whole thing isn't, so I just didn't submit to this mentor because it just didn't make sense. I would be screwing myself, you know, if I submitted to them and then they didn't even consider my book because it wasn't own voices. Or another example is this mentor right here prefers books with magic. So, like, they were open to contemporary novels, and they had a few things, well, no, they only wanted diversity. They really didn't match my thing at all, but also they preferred books with magic. So my book doesn't have magic, so they're going to probably prioritize books with magic over books like mine, so why would I submit to them? You know, it's just all of these things that you have to consider to really make sure you're making the right choice when it comes to choosing a mentor. So then once I had all of this information written down about all of these mentors, and again, I only put mentors on the list that were looking for books like mine. Like, if they said I'm not representing contemporary, then obviously they're not on this list because it would be a waste of my freaking time to add them to the list, you know? Like, maybe past me, who was very meticulous and very much like to have everything on the spreadsheet, she might have done this, but current me, who's a little bit lazier, was like, yeah, no, I'm only gonna do the people who matter. So then once I had all of this stuff written down, then I just went through and I found the ones that felt the best for me, and I highlighted their name box in green. So like this person right here, they wanted romance, characters with interesting hobbies and passions, fresh takes on tropes, strong and or complicated friendships and relationships, unique family dynamics, queer characters and relationships, inclusive cast, multiple POV. They have, their mentoring style is encouraging, honest, hands-on. They are going to work on everything with me, you know, not just the manuscript, but also the query and synopsis, and discuss agents and querying strategy, like, oh boy, goody. And their strengths are heightening romantic tension and tightening character arcs. So like all of these things are so great. It's all of what I need, so obviously that person's name goes in green. Another example, here's somebody who had a lot of things that I wanted, not as many, so they probably were knocked out of the running later on, but just anybody who felt pretty good, you know, like they got highlighted in green and moved over to the next category, which we'll talk about in a second. Here's another person who had a lot of really great things. They wanted diversity, LGBT characters, sweethearts and lovable geeks, etc., etc. They loved Aristotle and Dante. They only did emails and DMs. That was a plus. Adaptable, honest, and just wants to help. They're really good at characterization and plot development. Hell yes, green all the way. And I just went through and I did that for all of my possible mentors. This person had a lot of things, red, white, and royal blue. They're collaborative. They did have a deal breaker where they're prioritizing own voices. So again, you know, if somebody's prioritizing own voices, then they're not going to prioritize my story, so why would you submit to them? But they had so many other great things that I added them to the next list anyway. More and more people. These last two, I know for sure, I ended up submitting to. They had a lot of really great things. So yes, so anybody who was in green, then I moved them on to the next one, which was my favorite mentors. So the ones that were really looking good, really seemed like they had a lot of promise. Again, I just copied over the exact same information, literally word for word. I just copied it over to this so that I had all of the same information here. But now it was only the ones that I had highlighted in green. And then from there, I highlighted in dark green the ones that really stood out amongst these ones. So obviously this first one, again, really stood out. These next two really stood out to me. Oh, these next three really stood out to me. And then these last two really stood out to me. But obviously, that's more than 4. So what I did here, once I had the ones that really stood out to me that I really liked, I went back and I looked at these mentors' wish lists again. And this time what I really did was I paid attention to how the wish list made me feel. You know, how these people's personalities made me feel, how exactly what they were looking for made me feel, and I just kind of went with my gut. I mean, I also went with the obvious, like, things like who makes the most sense. You know, they have the most things that they want from me, like, a few of these people, like this person right here. I don't want to click on it because it'll show you their name, but this person wants all of these things, but it's not as many as, say, this person right below them. So, you know, just who wants the most things that I have. And so I ended up with my final choices, these 4. And as you can see, most of them, 3 of them are the ones that like had a lot, you know, the most things in the does want column. They had a lot of things in like the mentoring and strengths columns, or they had like Simon versus autobiography, you know, the ones that were really strong. But then you'll also notice at the end, there was definitely more people who had more things that were longer, you know, like these really long does want columns. This one's pretty short, so you might be wondering, like, why did you choose that one at the end? And it all came down to a gut feeling. I actually originally had another person who had a really long does want list, a lot of other things that really meshed with me, but when I went back and I read their mentor wish list again, I just didn't feel a connection with them as a person, whereas with this last person, I think it might actually be a duo, a mentor duo. I felt them more. I felt more connected to them as people, and it just felt more right. So, you know, I used logic for a lot of it, but in the end, if something doesn't feel right, even if the logic matches up, you're gonna feel wrong if you go with that. You know, you have to go with your gut. You have to go with what feels right. And so I did, and I don't regret it. So yeah, that's how I ended up picking out my mentors. Again, I feel very confident in the mentors I chose. Even if I don't get picked for Pitch Wars, I know I picked the best mentors available for my book. And now I'm curious. In the comments below, let me know what you did if you are a fellow Pitch Wars hopeful. What did you do to pick your mentors? Did you go totally just based off of your gut? Did you really read through the wish list, or did you just skim for things that matched yours? Did you take into consideration all the things I did, or did you just kind of wing it? You know, I want to know what your method was. I'm really interested to know that. So again, in the comments, let me know. And that's all I have for today. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that jazz. Also, please remember that I do now have a Patreon, so if you are interested in joining the Patreon fam, the link is in the description below. It is one single tier, $1 or more a month, and with that tier you get a lot of really cool perks, such as a shout out, getting to see my videos early, getting to vote on what video topics I cover, and even getting to recommend video topics to me, plus more that will be being added as time goes on and as I have more things to offer. So it's really exciting. Please make sure to go over and at least check it out if you can. I'd really appreciate it. And finally, thank you again for watching this video. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!